welcome to the Bullpen. In the Bullpen today, we have Mr. Garion Frankel, commentator, Young Voices. He's a graduate student at Texas A&M University, pursuing a Master's of Public Service and Administration degree with a concentration in education, policy, and management. All right, Gary, good day. Welcome to Indisputable. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Dr. Richey.
Absolutely. I don't want to presume what you know or believe about education and politics. That's what we would chop it up about today. So give me your sentiment about politics inside of education and your thought process about it. I would then opine.
Yes, sir. Before going on, I think it's important to make a distinction between values in education and politics in education. Values have been at the core of education for thousands of years. And even nowadays, when parents send their children to school, there is an intrinsic expectation that their children are going to develop virtues that are needed for their later life: courage, compassion, kindness, these types of values within our culture that most of us, at least to some extent, can agree on. On the other hand, you have politics in education, which is when somebody, either a teacher, can also be an administrator, attempts to force a very particular political perspective on a student. And when parents send their children to school, they generally expect their children to learn to read, to write, to do math, basic science, and to develop some of these core virtues of character. They don't necessarily expect mainstream political content to end up in the classroom. And at least in my opinion, it's rather unfortunate that it occurs in many classrooms around the United States.
All right, so you're incorrect about that. Pew Research has a study where most parents are actually okay with politics and current events being part of classroom discussions for the right subject matter, obviously. So they're okay with current events being inside of the classroom. I think parents should have some say-so in that. Let me take you to politics, because I think it's important that we define the variable. I think politics is okay in education. I will provide a premise for why I made that statement. But what's your definition of politics?
And that's a very important question to ask, because if you define politics in a more theoretical construct, then there is a role for it in the classroom at appropriate times, because you're discussing disparate theories of politics. And they can be very different from each other, and they can arrive at very different answers to the same question. And it's important to have an understanding of those varying perspectives. But when I say politics in this context, what I'm mainly referring to are mainstream political issues, typically issues that have some kind of Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal type of polarization, that are making their way into classroom content, and not just in government or economics classes, but in areas where many people would consider them to be inappropriate.
Okay, so do you know the definition of politics?
Well, that's a very loaded question, because many different people throughout history have.
No, I don't care what everybody else says it is. There's an actual definition for the word politics, just like there's a definition for the word government or the word industry. There's a definition for the word politics. Do you know the definition for the word politics or political?
The political, as Aristotle defined it, and this has been a very consistent stream throughout political thought, is that the political is the community. He defined it at the city level.
That's correct.
But many other thinkers have defined it at the state level, at city level, or even just within the family has also been a
well, the definition has actually remained the same throughout our rendition of language. So the definition of politics or political means to be concerned with the affairs of your community, government, or country. That's the definition of politics. So based on the definition of politics, which has virtually been the same for centuries, you still will say on my show that politics has no place in education. Now, I will provide a corrected narrative for you. I think the word you're looking for is partisan education, not political. Because if you were to eliminate political education based on the actual definition of political, You would then have to eliminate world history. You would have to eliminate American history. You would have to eliminate social studies. You would also have to eliminate economics, because economics interplays with historical context about how economic systems have developed over time and the political leaders that either enhance them or diminish them. So you would have to eliminate all of that subject matter if you literally took politics or political elements out of the classroom. So would you join me and kind of refocus? Because I know you're a graduate student, which means at some point you're going to write a master thesis. That thesis is going to be published. People are going to read it. People are going to adopt it and cite it in their literature. Instead of saying political, let's talk about the fact that we shouldn't have partisan education and K through 12 education. I agree with that. You and I can agree on that. So can we look at changing your terminology to partisan education rather than political?
I appreciate the very academic perspective here, because it's a lot different than what I'm used to, kind of having a foot in both worlds. But yeah. I completely assent to your reframing of the word.
All right, well, that's it, man. I appreciate you being on the show, sir. Thank you.